We do have a quorum present in person, so I'm going to call the meeting to order at actually 6:31. Good evening, I'm Pat Bates, the acting chairperson of the Sepulveda Basin Wildlife Area Steering Committee. Welcome to everyone online and also in person. We can go around the room. We do definitely have a quorum here, so I will let people introduce themselves. So, Nurit.
Nurit Katz, and in this capacity of this meeting, I represent LA Audubon.
The alternate there, yeah, Richard.
And with the representing the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance, and I'm president of Manx Neighborhoods.
If people could speak into the microphone or near the computer, please.
Follow a little bit.
Yeah, but you need to use your outdoor voices.
Shelley Backlar with Resource Conservation District of the Santa Monica Valley.
I have no idea who just introduced herself or what, you know.
Ryan Maida from Fuller.
Is your Kathy?
What?
I heard Kathy.
Thank you, Glenn.
And Steve Hartman, who's very quiet tonight.
Los Angeles, Santa Monica Mountains, California, plans.
Yeah. I will tell you, we have a sound problem in here. You're going to hear the Zoom people just fine, but we have got a very noisy air conditioning system running in the background. So please, everyone that's here, use your outdoor voices. Right? Muriel, you can get that? I see hands up. Glenn, you've got your hand up.
Well, just on that, since it is being recorded and so people want to go back. So after Nurit, there was a mention, I'm not sure if that was someone who was attendance. I heard the name of Richard. Was that someone in attendance?
Richard Davis is here, and Marianne is the alternate for Sierra Club San Fernando Valley.
Okay, we heard that. Thank you.
Okay. Okie dokie. And then online we have Muriel Coton, Rhonda Fields from the Army Corps, Kyle Water. Kyle, somewhere in the Midwest, thank you for being here. Barbara Heidemann from San Fernando Valley Audubon, and Charlie Wilkin from San Fernando Valley Audubon. We've got Ann Abramson from the Native Plant Society, Ari Cuellar from San Fernando Valley Audubon, Hannah Wayland from the Army Corps of Engineers, Melinda Watts. Melinda may be the director of the center here. I'm not sure.
RCD is Santa Monica Mountain. Melena's the RCD is Santa Monica Mountain.
She's RCD. Okay, thank you. George Waddell. Rose Gavitin from CD6. Okay, I think that's everyone on there.
You didn't get me. Glenn Bailey and Senior Neighborhood Council and Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance and alternate for RCD as well. By the way, Melina, I didn't mean to imply she was the representative or anything. She just has a connection. Let her introduce herself, but I know she's got a cooperative connection with the RCD. And she's not the park director, I guess is the main thing I wanted to say.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. I think I'm going to try and close that door a little bit more. We're getting some outside noise. We'll move on to discussion and approval of the minutes of the July 28th meeting. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and discussion? I'm seeing no hands raised. I see no hands raised by participants, so we can take I'll just ask, does anyone object to the minutes? Seeing no objection, the minutes are approved. We're up to public comment on non-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee. Do we have any public comments of that nature? If so, please raise your hand. Okay. And seeing none? Okay, I was contacted by Hannah from the Army Corps, our presenter about the master plan revision is in the Midwest. That's Kyle Water, who has joined us and from the Army Corps. So I'm going to take the government representatives out of order and move him to first. And Kyle, do you have slides to share with us?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I've got a presentation I can share.
I'm making you a co-host right now.
Perfect. All right. Okay.
To the left. To the left hand.
Yeah, here we go. Thank you.
All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Excellent. Well, I really appreciate you guys letting me come and give you guys a brief update on where we are with the Sepulveda Dam Master Plan revision. First off, I wanted to tell you guys how much I appreciated all your comments. I personally read through every one, and you'll find that we with USACE drafted responses to each one of your suggestions, and I appreciated how detailed and direct and germane you guys kept your comments. Usually when we're doing these master plan revisions, a lot of the comments fall outside of the scope of a master plan. That really wasn't the case with your guys' comments. You did a great job staying on topic and giving us some really good usable suggestions that we were able to take into consideration as we were doing the master plan for Sepulveda Flood Control Basin. So by means of introduction, my name is Kyle Water. I am the project manager for the Hanson and Sepulveda Master Plan revision. I work for the Southwestern Division's Regional Planning and Environmental Center. That's a special group that has become somewhat of the subject matter experts for revising master plans for USACE flood control reservoirs and navigation projects throughout the country. Currently, we're doing work in the LA district. We have 3 projects there, as well as the Portland district, the New England district, the Seattle district, and the Galveston district. So we have a pretty wide range of expertise in a variety of different contexts, both with really important urban projects like Sepulveda Flood Control Basin that provide essential recreation and natural resource and an ecological space within dense urban areas, as well as more rural projects that kind of have more of your traditional reservoir kind of components. My background, I've been with USACE for 8 years. I spent about 6 years as a park ranger and natural resource specialist in Texas with the Fort Worth district. And I've spent the last 2 years as a community planner / biologist with the Regional Planning Environmental Center supporting the master plan revisions for projects throughout the country, including Sepulveda Flood Control Basin. So I just wanted to talk briefly about what is a USACE master plan, because master plan, especially for folks that have such a kind of varied ecological, environmental, and natural resources background, everyone in different disciplines and different agencies and organizations tend to use the word master plan differently. How we use the word master plan is mandated and described by our USACE policies and regulations, specifically engineering regulation and engineering pamphlet 1130-2-550. If you're unfamiliar with how core regulations work, basically the ER, the engineering regulation, gives us the kind of statutory requirements to make master plans for our civil works projects, like Sepulveda Flood Control Basin, and then the engineering policy or pamphlet, the EP, kind of describes in detail how we're supposed to do that. The master plans that we write for USACE have a fairly narrow focus, and like I said, your guys' comments really demonstrate that you guys have a strong understanding of that, which is always great when we're working with stakeholders. But they really focus on classifying USACE fee-owned lands to guide recreation development. It's kind of the main focus is how are we, it's kind of like an urban planning exercise. How do we classify land in order to guide how recreation is developed in the next 25 years? So part of that process is outlining resource objectives. We write resource objectives for visitor assistance and information and services. We write objectives for recreation, objectives for natural resources management and environmental stewardship, and cultural resources. So those resources are outlined in policies. They kind of are based on some key fundamental principles across the Corps of Engineers, but we try to tailor them to the individual flood control project. So as I mentioned earlier, this master plan will have a 25-year planning horizon. Obviously, quite a lot changes in downtown LA over 25 years. And we know that if we putting in the effort to make sure that these master plans are representative, take in feedback from stakeholders, but also kind of have a wary eye towards the future, will help ensure that that document continues to serve Sepulveda Flood Control Basin and the people who depend upon it into the future. One thing that a lot of people sometimes get tripped up with our master plans is there appears to be a lot of areas that seem relevant to a master plan that we actually don't address. Specifically, we don't address flood risk management operations, water supply operations, or the day-to-day operation and management of the project. And that include, sorry, when I say project, I mean the flood control basin as a whole. That's some of my USACE jargon. I'll try to minimize that throughout the presentation. But those elements of how the flood control basin is operated day to day in terms of projects that are being planned in the future or management activities, those are more akin to like a work plan or what we call an operations management plan. Those are designed to be updated regularly, and they have a shorter planning horizon than the master plan. So think of the master plan as the umbrella document, kind of setting the fundamental plans and procedures and classifications and goals, and then smaller plans underneath that governing day-to-day operations, especially as we work with stakeholders and lessees and partners to actually manage the lands on a day-to-day basis. I wanted to give you a brief update about our project timelines. Currently, right now, we do have an initial draft of the Sepulveda Master Plan that is going through our review process internally. We drafted that review based upon a lot of the feedback that we received from the scoping meeting, as well as obviously a lot of input from internal USACE subject matter experts. So that's going through the process right now to get kind of approval to release to the public. Part of that, an important part about that, is tribal notification. So we make sure that we give the tribes and the State Historic Preservation Officer a good heads up, as well as our other stakeholders, that we are intending to release that draft. Some of your organizations that are stakeholders, I believe most of the ones that are represented on this committee, as well as the steering committee as a whole, will receive a formal letter with that date that we intend to release the draft materials. Just to kind of give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtains, we're hoping to do that mid-September. September is a really busy time of year for us in the Corps. That's our end of the fiscal year. So there's a lot of budget closeout and things that need to happen that sometimes can get in the way. But I'm hoping that we can get that released to the public sometime mid-September for you guys to review and for the public to review and provide comments on. We are going to do a 45-day comment period like we did before. We know that these are important documents, and based upon the diligence that the steering committee did to review the initial documents and the previous master plan, we want to make sure that all the organizations have sufficient time to do a thorough review and to provide us comments. And then just like we did when we prepared the initial draft, we will read every single one of those comments. We will consider them, and then we will write an official response in the text of the master plan to that comment, detailing kind of what USACE's perspective is on that comment, and that usually comes in terms of us either concurring with the comment and incorporating it in the master plan, or kind of a general noted where we maybe say if we appreciate the comment, we will consider it, but we're not going to. We might tweak how that comment's implemented, or just kind of a broader non-concur or not in the master plan, where we usually explain why we might not feel like we can or should undertake a certain suggested action. Like I said, you guys will have 45 days to review that, to provide comments. We will consider all those comments, and then we will make any revisions that are needed based upon that comment process. There will be a final review of that document. That final review usually takes significantly less time, since we've already had the lawyers look at it, and it's usually a more streamlined process, and we're hoping to have this published and in force by January of 2027. So that's the project timeline kind of as it currently stands. I wanted to discuss briefly land classification definitions as outlined by USACE policy, because like a master plan, these definitions can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and how one group might interpret a certain land classification might not be the way that we in the Corps interpret it. And we want to make sure that everyone's on the same page as we go through talking about proposed land classifications. So kind of our most restrictive land classification is project operations. That generally applies to lands used for the actual flood control purposes of the flood control basin. We've also extended that to include critical public infrastructure and utilities that benefit from having that type of classification. So the wastewater treatment plant, for example, at Sepulveda, that's something that we would believe should be under that project operations classification. That way our partners who operate that know that they have kind of the latitude to do what they need to do to ensure that that vital public service is provided. High density recreation is a classification that we use for lands with developed recreation, or intensive recreation. Pardon me. The best way to describe that is things like golf courses, formal parks, ball fields, paved surfaces like paved trails, paved parking lots. Drone like model airplane fields, things like that, where there is a type of recreation activity there that is specific to that makes other types of activities maybe not as possible in that area. Then we have a broad classification that we call multiple resource management lands. Within that classification, there are 4 subclassifications. The important thing to consider with these is that all of these subclassifications, the day-to-day management is pretty much the same in terms of the activities allowed or permitted. The difference is where we are identifying what the primary use of that land is. So low density recreation, those are lands with minimal development. Think like walking trails, or maybe like an off-road bike trail or equestrian trail, bird watching, fishing, hunting, things like that can fall within that low density recreation classification. Generally, it's areas that don't have permanent developed hard surface infrastructure. Then we have wildlife management. These are lands where the primary use of that land is to benefit wildlife populations. And that can be fish, that can be game animals, that can be endangered species, that can be migratory birds. It's just areas where we say there's important faunal elements that we need to manage for in these areas. And you'll find in the Sepulveda Master Plan that we've tried to use that land classification to outline some of the really important avian resources and other species that use kind of this area within the Sepulveda flood control basin. Next, we have vegetative management. This is similar to wildlife management, but the focus is more on kind of holistic management of vegetation communities. So areas where you're intending to do like a riparian restoration, or a prairie restoration, or timber stand improvement. The difference between wildlife and vegetation is, are you more interested in the vegetation community or the animals that live in that vegetation community? Obviously, there's a lot of overlap, And like I said, since they're in the same broader classification, it doesn't impact the actual use of that land or management of that land too much. It's just making sure that project managers in the future with USACE understand the intended management of that area. And then we have inactive or future recreation areas. This is a classification that was used extensively at Sepulveda in the 2011 master plan, but that we've tried to kind of walk away from. Essentially, inactive or future recreation, the intention was if there was an area that you knew at some point you might want to put a developed recreation area in, or that used to be a developed recreation area that no longer is being utilized in that manner, you would put it in this classification. The reason we've been kind of walking away from this is because it would still require a supplement to the master plan to change that classification from inactive or future recreation area to high density recreation if a recreation opportunity ever kind of came about. So we tend to use some of the other classifications within this group because there's not an advantage in terms of the administrative process to using inactive or future recreation areas. Finally, for relevant to Sepulveda, we have environmentally sensitive areas. The way that the Corps of Engineers interprets environmentally sensitive areas is kind of like an area like Forest Service. You might have mist when you're talking about forest fire suppression. For the Corps of Engineers, it's no ground disturbing activities, no intensive management, no agricultural leases, controlled burns generally are not permitted. Really kind of a hands-off, leave it be preservationist kind of approach. And environmentally sensitive areas can be areas that have a ecological importance, like a really at-risk vegetation community or endangered species, or cultural resources and important archaeological sites. All of those can fall within ESAs. One thing that we've noticed, and I'll talk about this more later, is that a lot of areas that have been set aside in previous master plans by the Corps as ESAs, by setting them up as ESAs, it has made land managers hesitant to actively manage those lands, which is actually causing environmental degradation in those areas that might not have happened had they had a land classification that was more readily adapted to active hands-on management. But we'll talk about that more in the future. Mitigation is another classification, but that's not relevant to what we have at Sepulveda. That only is allowed when you have areas set aside by Congress for mitigation. And that mostly happened on later construction of flood control projects. So I wanted to show you quickly what our proposed land classifications are at this point for Sepulveda Basin. One of the things you'll see is there's a lot of blue on this map, and that blue is high density recreation. Now that might seem like a dramatic increase in high density recreation, and in some ways it is, but this change in classifications actually aligns the classification of the land to how it's currently being managed. A lot of the golf course areas were previously classified as low density, and that's not really an appropriate classification for the type of intensive activities going on there. There was also a lot of areas that were designated as future and active recreation that had been developed for recreation, but the master plan hadn't been updated. Another thing you'll notice is that there's a lot of project operations in this map. You'll notice that along the LA River and along a lot of the channelized streams that feed the LA River, we've set this project operations classification. The justification behind that is that the channelization of the river is an essential part of the flood control properties of the reservoir, and any modification to those features would be a modification of the flood control mission of the reservoir. Now, that doesn't mean that modification couldn't happen in these areas. In fact, we would make the argument that having these areas designated as project operations makes that process a little easier because it's already recognizing that these are areas that are essential to the flood risk management mission of the project. Another thing you'll notice is that there's some large areas at the upstream side of the dam that have been classified as project operations. As I mentioned earlier, project operations is actually the most restrictive land classification. It has the most restrictions on intensive recreation development. So, for instance, any area that's project operations is probably not going to get a resort or a Margaritaville or a casino. Not that we're building casinos on federal land, but that's always kind of the example that we give, is that you can't build any kind of, really intensive, kind of more destructive or more land intensive recreation area. So having some of those lands designated as project operations does allow for more direct environmental stewardship activities to take place that align with the project's flood control mission. Another element that you'll notice is that the Sepulveda Basin wildlife area, we are proposing to classify that as wildlife management. That's partly based on some of the comments that we received about some of the needs in that area, especially with illegal dumping and encampments and kind of the reoccurring problem that is within the Sepulveda Basin. Same thing with that, the Bull River restoration area, or Bull Creek restoration area, pardon me. By classifying those areas as wildlife management, we are seeking to allow land managers and lessees and other agencies the latitude and the tools to manage those areas for the important species that live there in a way that frankly wasn't being done under the environmentally sensitive classification, because there was extra procedures that created that hopefully by designating as wildlife management, that will streamline and allow more responsiveness to address these issues and make sure that these areas are being actively managed to provide the best habitat for wildlife possible, while also providing for passive recreation like bird watching, like hiking, like nature observations and such. As well as supporting some of the facilities that are already built there, like the surface trails and bridges and the overlooks and things like that, that might not have actually be permitted under the previous environmentally sensitive classification. This shows the changes that we're making. I described most of those changes, but just to summarize them, we are completely eliminating the inactive or future recreation category. We are also eliminating the environmentally sensitive category based upon the reasons that I provided earlier. In place, we're going to see a net increase in wildlife management that should give us the latitude to take care of some of those areas. We also are seeing an increase in project operations that will protect areas that also have been suffering from illegal dumping, wildfires, illegal encampments, things like that. And obviously there is a big increase in high density recreation, but that mostly comes from classifying areas that have been developed as high density recreation, but were classified incorrectly in the previous master plan. I wanted to talk briefly about the comments that we received. We received 12 official comments. Now, when I say 12 official comments, a lot of those comments were very dense. If you guys remember the comments that we received from the steering committee, you guys were very, very thorough and had a lot of really good impact. So I wanted to take those 12 comment letters that we received, and I consolidated similar topics together based upon kind of the core subject that those comments addressed. That gave us 55 topics that USACE needed to write a response for. And on the pie chart on the right, you can see what our response was for. And you can see that a slight majority of the majority of them we responded with noted. And then we had 6 concur. We had 11 not in the master plan. That was mostly comments about kind of specific like public art installations and things like that we don't address in the master plan. Then there was 18 not concur comments. And whenever we said not concur, we explained our reasoning behind it in the text of the master plan. So when that draft comes out, please take a look at those comments and see what our response is. And if you would like to have more of a conversation in the future about that, we're happy to have another meeting and kind of talk about those in depth. Here are some friction points that I kind of anticipate. And I prepared this presentation for the city of LA previously. So some of this stuff is specific to the city of LA and maybe not specific to the steering committee. One of the broader comments we had was to integrate the ULART and the Sepulveda Basin Vision Plan into the master plan. We didn't do that mostly because both of those projects were very heavy on or both of those plans were very heavy on outlining future projects that should be undertaken within the flood control basin. And that's not really the purpose of a USACE master plan. There's no project list in the master plan where we say, these are the activities that we're aiming to do. Creating a shared governance structure, community advisory board for the entire reservoir. That was another thing that we weren't moving towards adopting in the master plan, partly because the master plan is not really the document for that, again, but then also just because the majority of Sepulveda Flood Control Basin is managed by lessees and by our partners and stakeholders, not directly by the Corps of Engineers. There was a list of stakeholders, and quite an extensive list of stakeholders that came from the Sepulveda Basin Vision Plan. There was a general request to coordinate with that entire list of stakeholders. Based upon the time, scale, scope, and funding of this project, that wasn't really feasible for us to do. Also, generally, we find that given how specific the master plans are, it's better to coordinate with directly with stakeholders and partner agencies that have the relevant experience, like the steering committee, like the City of LA, that can provide really directed comments rather than soliciting broad comments that actually don't fall within the scope of the master plan. There was a proposal to create a bike trail crossing the Sepulveda Dam. That's not directly addressed in the master plan, but with these projects, flood risk management is the primary congressionally authorized purpose. And so any kind of recreation activity, especially in project operations classified land, which the dam would have to be, needs to be able to comply or fit well within that, underneath that flood risk management mission. And then designating the Encino Creek area and part of the dam area as a wildlife area. That's another thing where talking to our folks in USACE that work in dam safety, they were talking about how those areas are vital for the flood risk management mission. Now, that doesn't mean that those areas can't be actively managed for wildlife. I know that there was some work done on Encino Creek. I know that Hannah is actively doing work on some of those upstream sides of the dam in terms of vegetation monitoring and vegetation invasive species control and things like that. So we are still definitely doing natural resources work, even if we're not going to formally classify it as a wildlife area. Other friction points, the big one, of course, that we anticipate getting a lot of comments about is the classification for the LA River, Bull Creek, and some of the other tributaries. A lot of the initial comments we received requested us to classify those as environmentally sensitive areas, partly to support the dechannelization project. And we've explained to the city and some of our other stakeholders that by classifying those areas as ESAs, if we had done that, it would actually have prevented any kind of dechannelization project, because that ESA classification prevents any type of earthwork. And obviously, dechannelizing a stream is a massive engineering undertaking. So we found that classifying these areas as project operations actually could it wouldn't preclude a stream dechannelization project if that was something that Congress authorized and that partners wanted to pursue. Classifying the back 40 and ponds and the golf courses as ESAs. Same thing, the ponds and the golf courses are artificial structures that must be maintained and are primarily being used for their recreation value. I understand that the ponds are more of a aesthetic feature of the golf courses rather than an actual recreation feature of the golf courses, but we figured it was inappropriate to put an ESA classification, especially since under the previous classification, which was, I believe, low density recreation, they were still providing important ecological services. So even though they're classified as high density recreation, that doesn't mean that the lessee could go ahead and, destroy any wildlife value that they would have. There's still other statutory and policy protections in place. Same thing with the back 40. The talk was about using that as a recharge area. We found that, again, by classifying that as an ESA, that might actually prevent some of the work that needed to be done to make it a recharge area. Also, there's kind of an argument about whether a groundwater recharge area meets kind of the standard of an ESA as outlined in USACE policy. And the existing land classification is high density recreation. So we determined it would probably be best to maintain that as that classification. If you guys are aware, you might know that there's was some consternation amongst the community about the development of that land, and so talking with the city of LA, that's something that they would prefer to maintain the status quo on, based upon kind of comments that they gave. The status quo in the sense of not further developing it, but keeping the existing classification. Classifying the heron rookery as an ESA. In previous master plans and other projects, we have classified nesting areas as ESAs. The issue is that birds fly and birds move, and sometimes those nesting areas move. And so when we go back and we revisit some of these master plans, we'll find ESAs in areas that were set for like eagle nesting. Well, eagles haven't nested in that area for a long time. And since this master plan has a 25-year planning horizon, we would prefer to focus classifications on kind of activities or features that will persist in the long term. Additionally, there's other protections for bird nests in policy and statute that would apply in that situation. And then just kind of broadly classifying lands according to the ULARD and the Sepulveda Basin Vision Plan. We didn't directly try to classify the lands as outlined by the Vision Plan or the ULART, but we have found, comparing what kind of the classification suggestions and priorities that we had within the core to what was outlined in the ULART and the Vision Plan, that there's a lot of areas of consistency. So while we didn't directly classify all those lands as those plans suggested, we found that the classifications that we considered appropriate are largely compatible with both of those documents. This is kind of talking about some things that might be controversial. As I mentioned, classifying the LA River and tributaries as project operations. I've explained that. I think we have a much better opinion of it. I think the only major concern is that recreation activities wouldn't be allowed in those areas if they're designated as project operations. My counter argument as well, though, would be that, well, if they were ESAs, there would also be some limitations on events and recreation opportunities and infrastructure in those areas. Classifying ESAs as wildlife management, that I know is going to be the big concern of this group, and I want to make sure that I devote adequate time to that, and we can have a further discussion about that. But as I mentioned, we've discovered in this process rewriting master plans across the country that areas designated as ESAs generally over the term of the master plan end up in a worse ecological condition than when they were originally designated, because project managers see that ESA classification and assume I can't do anything in that area. It's completely hands off. And feedback we've gotten from partners have said that that ESA classification causes further administrative hurdles that make it harder to respond to, critical environmental degradation that comes from things like illegal dumping or encampments. So we really feel that having a wildlife management classification would allow land managers, would allow our partner organizations and our stakeholders the latitude to manage that land actively and intensively as it needs to be, to preserve the wildlife value of the area in general, rather than a few specified species or attributes. I think that's all I'm going to talk about on here. This kind of goes more into that discussion I'm talking about wildlife management and vegetative management versus ESAs. As I mentioned, ESAs generally mean no earth disturbing activities, no intensive management practices, the type of equipment you can even use, like heavy equipment or things like that, can be precluded because they're in an ESA. And as I'm sure you guys will attest, and you guys have a lot of expertise on the subject, a lot of these areas that have been designated as ESAs are suffering from dumping and from encampments and wildfires and other human-caused impacts that that classification we feel is having a negative impact in terms of handcuffing our ability and our partners' ability to respond to it. So we want to be able to use these vegetative management and wildlife management classifications so that we can use whatever tool we need to use to manage that for the intended goal. And the intended goal in the wildlife basin is pretty much whatever the steering committee thinks and USACE agrees is the goal of that wildlife basin. And so if that's If that's for general bird health, or if that's for fisheries health, or those priorities change over time, we want to make sure we use a classification like wildlife management that gives all of our partners the flexibility to be able to respond to whatever pressing ecological concerns. When we designate an ESA in the master plan, we have to specify what that ESA was designated for, and management activities must pertain to that specific item that ESA was designated for. So, for instance, if we designate an ESA for a specific endangered species, other activities that, let's say it's a bird species, a cavity nesting bird species, but now we notice that there's issues with water quality affecting amphibians. Well, we couldn't do intensive natural resource management activities supporting those amphibians, since that's not the designated purpose of that ESA. Whereas wildlife management gives us the latitude to respond to whatever pressing ecological concern is in an area with whatever tools are necessary and appropriate to eliminate that problem. Additionally, passive recreation is permitted in wildlife management and vegetative management, and it's more restricted in ESAs. For example, looking at the wildlife basin or the wildlife area at Sepulveda, those overlooks, those nice spots along the beach there. With the strict reading of the ESA designation, those would actually not be permitted, and maintenance of those kind of facilities would be something that a future lake manager or project manager would could consider restricting based upon kind of a incongruity with that environmentally sensitive classification. Special events generally aren't allowed in ESAs, and that can include things like volunteer cleanups and those kind of activities, bird counts, like a Christmas bird count or something like that might require a special event permit. Whereas wildlife management or vegetative management have some more, they're not as strict in that area, and they leave more up to to project management and land managers to decide what's allowed and what's not allowed. Kind of same thing when it comes to, I know a big concern right now is with e-bikes, dogs off leash, things like that. Designating that area as a wildlife management area allows land managers to implement policies in the future that protect that area without us having to spell it all out in the master plan right now. Because, I didn't see e-bikes coming to be as big of a thing as they are now, and who knows what in 15 years the next big kind of nuisance in natural areas is going to be. So kind of giving that latitude rather than having to specify in that ESA designation of what we're restricting is something that I think would be beneficial for Sepulveda. Also talking about project operations, as I mentioned, project operations is the most protective category, restricts intensive development, prioritizes that authorized flood control mission, but natural resource management and restoration activities are permitted and ongoing in project operations areas. We actually use project operations pretty extensively to set aside areas that have both a project operation functionality, but then also have some natural resource value. Other projects throughout the country, we find that to be a good tool to prevent overdevelopment, and I know that that's a big concern in Sepulveda, just given the location of the project. And as I said earlier, project operations along the river channel would better support any type of intensive restoration effort, whether that's a dechannelization or something as simple as a stream cleanup special event, especially anything that might involve heavy equipment. So big benefits, big picture of our new land classifications. More latitude to restore ecosystems. We're unlocking a variety of intensive management tools that aren't tied to a specific resource or a specific management objective. We're trying to establish more protections from overdevelopment while recognizing areas that are already being used as high-density recreation and kind of limiting the spread of that. We want to mitigate dumping and encampments by making smart administrative changes that kind of reduce some administrative burdens. We want to increase emphasis on nature-based, low-intensive recreation. We want to support that and encourage that throughout the project. Reading the SCORP and reading some of the other documents that we read for this project, that's the future of outdoor recreation is low intensity bird watching, hiking, nature viewing, things like that. So we want to be cognizant of that. These are the new resource objectives. Like I said, we try to tailor them to the specific project. The key ones I wanted to point out to you is this the fourth one from the top about actively managing and conserving fish and wildlife resources, especially threatened and endangered species. And then also the one below that where we talk about managing high density and low density recreation lands in ways that also have benefits to wildlife. So those areas designated as HDR, those the pools or the ponds rather and the golf courses, we have a resource objective saying that we are going to manage those with natural resources in mind, even though they're designated as high density recreation. Minimize activities which disturb the scenic beauty of the Sepulveda flood control basin. And then this last one of protect and restore important native habitats such as grasslands, riparian zones, and wetlands. And special emphasis on the care of special rare plant species, pollinator habitat, migratory bird habitat, and so on. And you'll be able to read these resource objectives in detail. And we tried to take a lot of the feedback that you guys provided on the 2011 resource objectives. These are a little bit different because our template have changed, but we tried to incorporate a lot of that feedback in the resource objectives in the new master plan. The new objective benefits, we're trying to align with federal laws and policies. We want to provide really easy implementable guidance. A lot of times resource objectives have a specific pet project of the current administration or the current leader of that facility that 25 years down the road might not be the most pressing priority. So we want to make sure that there's something that has broad applicability. We want to bolster natural resource management in rec areas. Obviously, that's the biggest footprint at Sepulveda, and we want to make sure that those areas are being managed for wildlife and vegetation and native species. We want to make sure that we prioritize partnerships. The Corps couldn't do any of the stuff it does at Sepulveda Flood Control Basin without great partners, great lessees, great stakeholders that care about these facilities. And that's one of the things I've been very impressed with working on this project is how much everyone cares about this project, about this basin, how important it is to the community. And we want to make sure that our resource objectives highlight that and make it a priority when we go forward with these kind of efforts. The big thing is we want to make sure that this is adaptable over that 25-year planning horizon. That was a lot of information, and I know I talked pretty briskly. I can go back to any slides if you have a specific question, but I would be happy to take any questions you guys might have. If there's anything that I can't specifically answer, since my expertise is more on the master plan itself, I'm sure Hannah would be happy to answer some of them as well.
Okay, I see one hand raised online. Yeah, let's turn a light on so we can see people. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go.
Steve Hartman.
So, Haskell Creek is what runs through the wildlife reserve, has basically filled up with downed trees, and for the whole time, neither the city of Los Angeles, who's the leaseholder, or the Army Corps of Engineers has done anything to ameliorate or fix the situation. Is anything that you're proposing here going to help get the leaseholders to be responsible? But it's below grade and it's in the creek, so how does that handle in terms of your regulations?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I don't have a ton of expertise when it comes to the specifics of the lease with the city of Los Angeles. I know that there's some consternation about managing natural resources versus managing recreation in the terms of the lease. My kind of broad level view, and you were saying Haskell Creek is the one that goes through the wildlife area?
Yes.
Yeah, so my kind of broad the broad thing that I would say about that is by having part of that classified as project operations and most of it classified as wildlife management, that would reduce a administrative hurdle that we have heard from the city of Los Angeles regarding doing work in areas that have been previously designated as environmentally sensitive. Some of the feedback we got from stakeholder meetings was that those areas being classified as ESAs, can trigger some additional review processes within the city of LA's kind of environmental compliance section that make any kind of substantial project like that more time consuming to get off the ground, if that makes sense. And so kind of the hope is that just in the master plan where we can kind of address that by addressing the land classification, we can reduce any hurdles that the land classification itself might cause in that process, which would kind of streamline any discussions between USACE, the city of LA, and then any partner organizations about how any kind of specific restoration or like a or like a debris removal projects would be undertaken in those areas. But in terms of specifically outlining like a project that we are going to try to do this project in the next 25 years, that's something that does fall outside the scope of the master plan.
Doesn't the master plan address the relationship between the Corps and the leaseholders?
No.
Actually, not directly. We are having a section where we kind of summarize some of that, but most of we tend to, for the sake of the master plan, we kind of enumerate the concessionaires, the leaseholders, and kind of describe the facilities that are present. But the actual relationship between the two in terms of day-to-day management is something that falls outside of the scope of the master plan and falls more in the specific lease documents.
Maybe that would be something you could research for us and get back to us as it relates to the Sepulveda Basin Wildlife Reserve.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I can definitely talk to Hannah about. And I know that we have a lot of good feedback from the real estate team in Los Angeles district, and they provided a lot of input on that. And so that's something that I can definitely talk about, try to see how that relationship goes in. And that could be a good suggestion when it comes to the draft of the master plan, is in that section where we talk about the city of LA's role in managing recreation. Maybe it would be beneficial to include a section talking about natural resource management. Although I do believe there's some disagreement between some of the parties involved about that. And I think that that's at the heart of your question, is trying to figure out how that relationship works when it comes to something as important as debris in, a critical waterway, but also that might not fall directly within that recreation mission that the city of LA, has the lease to support. Great question.
Yeah, so we've had this problem. We've had this problem since the previous sublease was signed. And, it seems like since you're doing a new thing here, this would be a good time to at least address the situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, great question.
Okay, online I've got a Glenn Bailey and then Muriel Coton.
Thanks, Kyle, for the informative presentation. Could you go back to the slide? It was the initial proposed land classifications, but the slide right after that. Yeah, wait, the next one. Right, that had the chart. I wanted to ask, just for my own clarification. I know the previous. Don't switch yet, because I just wanted to make a note of this one. But I did want to ask on the map. Okay, if you can go back to the previous one as well. Okay, so I wanted to just clarify for the land classifications of the low density recreation versus high density recreation. It looks like to me that there is no low density recreation of the light blue. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, close. It's really hard to see. That Libet Park area on the extreme southwest point of the basin,
Okay.
right by Morrison Street, is the only existing low density recreation area there. And that's just because those facilities,
Right.
I think it's just open grass there.
Right, I get it. So basically anything that's picnicking, walking, that's considered high density?
Not necessarily. So like within the basin itself, I know that there's walking trails both at the wildlife area and at the Bull Creek restoration area. So those kind of activities are perfectly compatible with a vegetation management or a wildlife management classification.
Okay, so
So-
here's why I'm asking. First of all, I want to make sure I was. Thank you for pointing out Libet, but yeah, I was focused on the basin as the proper. The reason I was asking is it's relevant in terms of the distinction between like soccer fields, very intense.
Yep.
Very crowded areas like around Lake Balboa, okay, versus areas that may be more, and I don't even know. I mean, at first I was wondering would even golf courses fit into, low density because there's not many people per acre, right, at any given time. But I'll leave that aside. There are some areas in the basin where this plan could make a difference. And I guess we can put this in the public comment. I'm just trying to understand the classification methodology. So the area west of so north of the LA River, just west of Balboa, the existing Balboa Sepulveda Basin sports field, the 4 baseball fields and the soccer field. The area west of that was, as part of the city's approval process, was supposed to have been passive recreation. And so, that was a compromise because of putting in, 5 very intense fields and, putting the western 40, if you will, of that. And so I am concerned, and I was trying to understand the distinction between what we were seeing as very passive use, having the same designation of high density as there are with all the other, soccer fields, et cetera. And so that I guess that'll be a point of comment on the, in the process. The other thing was that, the Sepulveda Basin plan is, for the core is 2,150 acres. The city leases 1,500 acres. So you've got over 25% of the area that the city doesn't have direct control or really any control over. And one of the things that came out of the previous master plan was to actually deal with some things that I don't know if the rules have changed or not, but we got things in the master plan that limited the size of events in terms of the number of attendees, the impacts on parking, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the issues that came up during that whole process was the fact that not only the city's 1,500 acres with the whole disparate uses, but the other 650 acres of other lessees, or in some cases, no lessee, it's Army Corps, that there is no coordination or communication. There was actually, and I don't know if that came because of the master plan process 15 years ago, or it was because the problems were recognized by a former recreation and park general manager or assistant general manager. But for a number of years, there was a coordinating entity. It was called the Sepulveda Basin Users Group, I believe, and it brought in the fly fishermen. It brought in, the wildlife committee reps. It brought in the Lake Balboa users, the golfers, the model airplane field. It basically was the whole range of things. I can't say it was because of that previous master plan, but the time frame and the issues that of concern that folks. So I guess my question is that something that's specifically excluded as an option in the master plan process, or is it something that isn't possibly an option?
So when you're saying something that's excluded, are you saying that those kind of specified restrictions on special events is something that's excluded from the master plan?
Sorry,
or the committee?
That was just an example from the previous master plan.
Sure.
No, I'm focusing in on the authority and the ability of a master plan to deal with these issues that have plagued us for decades on the basin because of the various user groups, and also the fact that some have there's no city involvement, but there could be involvement with community, and that's a whole other discussion. It's out of the purview of this committee, but in terms of impacts, and it actually some of this does impact the LA River for some of the non-city leased properties. So I'm trying to understand if that sort of call for a advisory board or whatever you want to call it is not allowed. It's out of the purview of the master plan to call upon that as to be part of the objectives of a master plan.
I see. Okay, yeah. So I would say that the process or to your point, like the call of setting up like an advisory committee or an advisory board is outside the purview of the master plan. However, the master plan does not preclude it and say that we can't use that. Basically, I would say that something like that is something like the steering committee that can be set up by USACE and its stakeholders and partners if there's enough interest and need for it, regardless of without the master plan specifically saying we will do this or we need to do this, or saying we won't do this. And and I apologize if I kind of maybe was a little unclear with how I was talking about responding to some of the comments when I was talking about the friction points. We don't say that we will not, in the master plan, we don't say that we will not set up this kind of committee or participate in this kind of committee. I believe the specific response is that USACE values partnerships and will work with partners and stakeholders, but that, primarily like the lessees and other kind of like the stakeholders are the one that have, kind of the most important interest in the USACE will be involved in that process if applicable. So I would say that there's like that's something that definitely could come out of the master plan. It won't be specified or kind of outlined in the master plan, but the master plan won't prohibit the Corps from doing it either, or from partners or stakeholders from undertaking that effort either. And I will say as well, related to kind of special events, that's one thing that we're looking at as well as kind of that policy and those policies. We have those included, the current policies included in the master plan, but that's not really the best location for those because those policies actually exist outside of the master plan. We include them as a reference, but they should exist outside of the master plan. That way they can be changed if they need to based upon community feedback and USACE management priorities. So that is one thing that we are kind of looking at and considering that, and that would be an excellent comment when the draft comes out.
Okay, just know, sorry, this is important because it's something we've been dealing with for decades. Having something at the level of the Corps of Engineers for the entire property versus the city of LA, which did something at the level of the Recreation and Parks highest level. Assistant General Manager was convening this for the basin, and then she delegated it to the Valley region, and who then delegated it to the maintenance supervisor, who then and then ultimately it just went away. So it really needs to be at a higher level than the city, honestly, even though they started off with the best of intention. Okay, one final question. In terms of the north end of Woodley, on the west side, where the Valley region, up towards Victory, where the Valley region, a little bit further up and to the left, left. Okay, right there. So the Valley region headquarters is considered high density recreation as opposed to operations.
Yes, and correct me, the Valley region, that's RAP, right?
Correct.
Yes, yeah. So something like that, we would consider that recreation, since they are the recreation lessee. A good argument could be made for it to be project operations, and if that's something that the city wants and that other entities want, that's something that I don't think that's something that we could definitely consider. We put it just as recreation since it was recreation allows easy use of those facilities for kind of managing for recreation purposes. So that's kind of why we have that as recreation. But yeah, a good argument could be made for making it project operation.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is there's a proposed under Prop K aquatic facility between that the Valley region headquarters and I guess that red point there, red rectangle that you have, and I was just trying to see how, if you're differentiating between an aquatic facility versus a administrative and maintenance yard. But, okay, thank you very much.
Oh, and I do want to get back to your initial question about that back 40 area. So based upon the previous land classifications, that area was originally in the 2011 plan, it was designated as high density recreation. And so we chose to just keep the existing recreation with the understanding that based upon our kind of communication with the city is that they have no intention of developing that area.
Okay, well, I'm glad they're saying that because we've heard other things from other people in the city, and it'd be violating the agreement that they made when they developed the easterly half of that property, because it abuts the LA River. There is a buffer property, as you know, just to the north of the LA River and just west of Balboa, and then this was supposed to transition into passive picnicking and walking, that sort of thing. So okay. Yeah. Okay, well, I guess we'll save it for the comments.
Yeah, and I would say that'd be an excellent comment of based upon this and this, you know, and the community input, we would like this to be low density recreation. I think that would be a good comment to include, and it's definitely something that we can consider.
Thank you.
I've got a question from Muriel, and then we've got to move it.
Yes, I've got a concern about the amphitheater, the Wildlife Reserve amphitheater, and the lawn between it and what you show in green as the Wildlife Reserve. Basically, I'm referring to the land between the dam and the Haskell Creek, which you show as red coming down through the dark blue. No, way farther north. Much farther north. Whoa, go to the, okay, you're in the general area. Okay, you see there's a red line coming, straight red line coming down there. Mm-hmm. That's Haskell Creek, which you have as operations. Then it ends and it's not distinguished from the high density recreation. Well, that part of the creek, except towards the far north, and the reserve and lawn, the lawn and amphitheater, which would be between where your cursor is now and the dam. No, where your cursor was.
Oh, sorry, I actually can't see my cursor right now.
It's okay. I'm sorry.
My apologies.
Much farther to the right, there is a red line coming straight down from the Tillman plant. Okay, that is Haskell Creek, and that continues to the LA River, going through the Wildlife Reserve and through the management zone, the operations zone to the south. Okay, that area is a mixture of uses, but essentially it is for picnicking and other quiet recreation. Scattered trees have been planted in there, and it's being developed as something of a grassy savanna with a nice lawn. It seems to me that is a perfect place to be designated as a low density recreation area.
Yeah, I mean that does sound like it fits the definition perfectly. I'm not super familiar with that area specifically, but I think that would be an excellent comment to include, and that's something that we can evaluate. I'm not entirely sure exactly. Let me look here.
Go back to that definition slide really quick while we're talking.
Sure.
The one that like the uses. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with that specific parcel, but that would be an excellent comment to include. If it doesn't have kind of more developed, intensely developed infrastructure, I think that there's a good argument to be made that maybe low density recreation or even extending the wildlife reserve north to include that area, since they would allow similar activities, might be something worth considering. If we put it as low density recreation, we would call it out in the text of the master plan and specify the uses of that area.
Proximity to the dam.
Yeah, well, thank you. For your information, there's a 100-person amphitheater there with concrete benches. It's basically the staging area for educational tours and similar of the wildlife reserve.
Okay, yeah, I mean that makes sense. Yeah, I think that would be an excellent comment to include. That's something we can definitely talk with some of the subject matter experts on the USACE side and see if that's something that deserves being changed in the final.
Thank you.
I suggest Muriel might be for us to, I can see where that is. Perhaps I can indicate it on a map, and I agree that area should be low density recreation, and then we can send it off to Kyle.
Great.
Yeah, that'd be great. That kind of specificity definitely is helpful when it comes to drawing the lines on the map of where classifications change. That would definitely be appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kyle.
No, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me participate in your meeting, and thank you for giving me the courtesy of going first so that I can run off to bed and get to bed at a reasonable time. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're going to move on. Oh, we're running a little late. Larry, are you here with us? We have Larry Frank from the mayor's office, and he may have, I don't know. There's Larry. Hi.
Hey, everybody. That was very interesting. That was very,
plan.
Yeah, I learned a hell of a lot. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I have some questions which I'll bring up with you tomorrow. So we do have some updates. Hannah might be able to speak to it better than I can, but it does sound like this winter, so assuming it gets funded in the 2026-27 budget, there will be additional work potentially happening this winter on the LA River between Balboa Boulevard and Burbank Boulevard, which would be extremely meaningful. Rosie can speak to the amazing process that LASA has had working with CD6 on their new tiny home village, and Veronica can speak to maybe a little bit more direction as to where their work will be related to LE28. And September 3rd, there will be an announcement of the 22 million finally, with some clarity as to the pieces of work that it is going to fund. I can speak briefly to Rec and Parks actually having completed the review and submission of the CEQA and NEPA request to Army Corps of Engineers, who does have the documents, and they've also submitted their right of entry application related to the $208,000 of their Prop 4 funding that comes to them via by right as the LA Conservation Corps to do operations in the Bull Creek area, hopefully as soon as September 15th, but sometime soon after that. And I think that's, I could talk about other things, but I think those are the key pieces of information that are due to this operations happening in the Sepulveda Basin.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any questions? And otherwise, yep. Other folks, I don't want to steal their thunder. There's real good work happening from a number of people that are here today. And then, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone have questions for Larry? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Great to see everybody.
Good seeing you. Welcome back. And do we have Rosie? Hi, Rosie. Are you with us? I see you there. Good.
Hang on, she's seeing something on text. Can you come back to me? Sorry, my mic isn't working.
Okay, we'll come back to Rosie. Joshua from Rec and Parks online. I did not see him earlier. Okay. Joshua, if you're on there somewhere, I don't see you, so just butt in if you pop on. We don't have Chief Barna here tonight, which I'm kind of disappointed by. Is Hannah still on, and do you have any comments? Let's see.
I am here.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, so as Kyle gratefully presented today, we are hoping to release the draft master plan and EA in mid-September. I will keep you guys updated when that specific date will be. And as Larry mentioned, yes, we are trying to schedule a cleanup, looking at January 2027 currently to do that in the LA River. And we are also working with Council of Watershed Health, who I see a couple people online, so I'll let them speak about their project there, but they will be doing some Arundo removal in the LA River for us. That's all I got.
Beautiful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Hannah. I don't know if Rosie's still having trouble with her mic. Let's see here. We can just move kind of right along here. Glenn, did you have any updates from Encino NC?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you now.
Perfect. Okay, I'm sorry about that. So I know Larry also touched on a few of the CD6 updates, but I'll expand on them. Ultimately, and also I just want to preface by saying too, I've been out the last 2 weeks, so I just got back and I'm catching up with everything. So if I've been extra MIA, that is the reason why. But our tiny homes did open up during the week of August 10th. And later that week, we actually started placing individuals from the basin indoors. So I haven't gotten the official numbers, but our team did say that they're moving forward with doing at least 2 people from the basin per day. And a lot of these folks are coming from zone 3. So some good news there. I know that Lassa and Matthew Mitnick in particular is working with our team super closely. So he's been a really, really huge help. And then I did receive a few emails from the board in regards to an update for the ranger station. And sorry, there was one more thing. It was the ranger station and the website. We actually have another meeting with IT about the website, but I know that it is moving forward. And then we had our intern that came in did the presentation during the last meeting. So it's all moving forward. Our council member, she also made a few amendments to get some more funding to the basin. That was also announced last week. I'm still working with our legislative team to see what exactly that all entails, but we're looking to get more streetlights along Woodley, Burbank, and Balboa. So that's going to be a huge help, along with funding for the median improvements that I also talked about last month. So all of that is moving forward. I just don't have the concrete answers just yet, but she did make actually a really, really good speech during council last week that I could also find the link to and share with you all, just advocating for the basin. But ultimately, those are my updates. I'll have more once I've become more settled in, since I've been a little bit behind and out of the office. But if there's anything in particular that you would want me to look into, please let me know.
Okay. Okay, it's very hard for me to hear in here, so I'm probably going to listen to the recording later. We've got a very noisy air conditioning unit running. Did you mention the website?
Yes, I did. I mentioned that we have another meeting with IT to see where we're at this week.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Okay. Glenn, do you have any news from Encino?
Maybe. So tomorrow's meeting was canceled, and then another notice came out today of a special meeting. So stay tuned. Um, I don't have the agenda right in front of me to bring up anything related. I don't recall anything specifically related to Sepulveda Basin. They are looking at doing a community event. It was supposed to be the end of September, but I believe they pushed it to October, a movie night in the park. And I think that's all I have. Oh, well, there will be a meeting of the Parks Committee probably in September. I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have Michael Boa and see online? No, she's online. I don't know if she wants to say a few words.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sitting in the dog park. Um, we had a parks meeting. I've been MIA because of health issues, but I'm back. We had a great park meeting last night. And we're looking forward to getting together with Encino's Park committee. And supporting each other without being independent of, the different plans, events, ideas, especially of supporting you guys and getting that word out. We have we had someone come in and talk about painting that bridge at Haskell, I think it is. And we're trying to organize that getting painted. And Rosie, that was something he mentioned that Imelda was there at one point painting. So we're interested in doing that, working with Rex and Parks and getting up to speed. Our next meeting is September 25th, I think, the 4th, Monday.
Okay. And
We lost you.
I think has his hand with the question, but I don't know with
Pat, you're breaking up.
what.
My side, you're breaking up. Can you hear me? Okay, assuming you can, I just have a little addendum. Sorry, as a consequence of the last wildlife committee meeting last month, the Encino Neighborhood Council does have on their agenda to create an ad hoc Olympics committee because of the no doubt because of the revelations last time that Victory and Balboa and Burbank and Woodley and impacts on the Van Nuys Airport flight operations would be affected during the Olympics. There may be other reasons, but I just wanted to let folks know that's on the agenda for tomorrow.
Okay,
Two quick things from the chat, Pat. One, Veronica says she's happy to provide a quick update on Crystal's connections in the basin.
Veronica, yeah,
Larry signed off with great information. So appreciate being present for the master plan revision presentation. Unfortunately, I have to step away from family obligations. He will follow up with you tomorrow as the updates on work in the basin. Rosie can present as she just did on placements of PH into CV6's tiny home village. Hannah might be able to speak to possible funding for vegetation work this winter on the LA River between Burbank Boulevard and Balboa, and Veronica might be able to help you.
okay,
He says thank you.
okay. And I think we lost Miriam. Okay. Let me see here. Huh?
Under renovation,
You have to go out and all the way around, or I don't know. I do not know the answer. The whole place here is torn apart, in case you're wondering what's going on. So, we have Paula Nunez.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything for us?
Not too many. Storage is an ongoing conversation, but just a reminder, next month I do hope to present a brief overview about what we have in the strategic plan for volunteers. And yeah, we're really looking forward to letting you all know what we've got going on so far, and also really looking forward to your feedback.
Okay, so you want to be on the agenda next month?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Everything over there is really looking good. I try to, when it's really, really hot, the dragonflies are active. So I'm out shooting dragonflies quite often. So let me see, hold on. Veronica, did you want to say a few words? Veronica is with Chrysalis. We can't hardly hear you. Huh? Yeah.
Is that better?
There. Yes.
Okay, sorry. Nothing dramatic. I was out last week for a family emergency, but I had a fabulous meeting with Charles and discussed maybe how Chrysalis could be part of some of his vision there. We are likely to get some more funding for vegetation management in the upcoming months, so that's exciting. And our LA 28 grant, I do want to do an on-the-job training in the fall. So we would need a place to basically work and learn, help our crew members learn about invasive species and maybe some vegetation management techniques. So the great thing about on-the-job training is we can also get work done at the same time. So I wanted to just pitch that idea to you and ask if there's a safe place, an environmentally sound place for us to work on trees, get rid of invasive species, et cetera, with certified land management experts.
Okay.
Have you been to the Saturday Polar, fourth Saturdays of the month events where we train people on this? Or have you been to the Dawn Patrol on Thursday mornings to, we could give you a training then?
Or a Saturday event.
Or a Saturday.
Uh-huh.
You could contact Steve Hartman or Paola Nunez.
Okay, I'll look into that. I'll look on the FOLAR website. Is that what I'm hearing?
They do events,
Mhm.
but the Native Plant Society does events and REC does events too. All of those you could learn the secret.
Yeah, no, we have funding to bring in certified teachers from Sonoma County and even Colorado. So we have like, and firefighters, things like that. I need a place to work. Not
Yeah,
so
well,
much.
they wouldn't know anything. I don't think they would know anything, any of the effective ways of removing weeds in the Sepulveda Basin. We've been doing it for 20 years and we've done all the wrong ways many years, and now we know the right ways. So.
Good. Okay.
I
Well,
mean, from out of the area, I don't think it's gonna help you any.
yeah, I mean, some of the firefighters were last time, you know, they live in LA, they, you know, work in Kern County and with LAFD and CAL FIRE and things like that. But no, that would be great. I'd rather be on the ground with the people who have loved the basin for such a long time. So how do I coordinate that offline? I don't want to take up the time here now.
Just contact us by email.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Love it.
Okay. All right. Weeds be gone. I'm gonna change.
If anyone else needs the restroom, it's in fact just outside that door and there's an alley. Oh. It was not a long time.
Okay. We have any other environmental groups, government groups with any comments? If anyone would like to raise your hand. No. Not seeing any. Okay, on Pat.
Well, this is Drew Reedy. I do have my hand raised. You may not be able to see it. I'm with the Council for Watershed Health, and Hannah referred to some of the Arundo control work we're doing in the basin. Over the last 2 years, we've cleared about 7 acres of Arundo. And this year we'll be monitoring those that Arundo that we've been working on. We do get resprouts, and we'll be controlling resprouts again this fall. It permits from the state and of course Army Corps. And yeah, we'll be out on Encino Creek, Bull Creek, and on the LA River, looking for Arundo and treating it where possible. We can report next meeting as to what we've gotten done. So we'll attend these meetings and give you guys updates when we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if I gave you a total, but we've controlled about 7 acres at the Sepulveda Basin. Thanks.
Welcome.
Everybody's right now. Well.
Okay, I think in the agenda that we're up to item 5, which was we provided recommendations to from Audubon to Rosie at CD6 regarding various mitigation efforts to pursue in the Sepulveda Basin. A lot of these plans were developed around late 2020 to 2021, after the entire wildlife reserve was incinerated. And it wasn't just one fire, it was one big fire, but there was a whole bunch of fires, and a lot of that area in the reserve had burned. And it would have been an ideal point to jump in and start doing reseeding and and pursuing goat racing and other mitigation efforts. And of course, everything was ignored. And, you know, and then of course we were dealing with the pandemic at the time and a city council district that didn't want to work with us. So, basically Muriel, Colton and Barbara and I worked on going through those old measures and discussions and worked on, distilling them into one memorandum as to what would be a good plan to go forward with our vegetation areas. And, you know, we've got several areas. We've got the east field that it hasn't been replanted, the west field that's it's got a lot of non-native flashy fuely grasses, but it's also getting a lot of native plants in it. And I seem to have adopted the model airplane field. So anyhow, Steve Hartman suggested possibly adopting that as a formal plan.
Yeah,
That we recommend.
I move we endorse the San Fernando Valley recommendation. San Fernando Valley Audubon recommendations. For to C6. What are we making the recommendations to?
Well, they were provided to CD6.
So I suggest that our committee endorse those recommendations that San Fernando Valley Audubon submitted to CD6. Is there a second?
Nice, Evan.
Thank you.
And we've got a second, and do we have some, I'm sure it's been sent out to everyone, have you all read it?
Yeah.
And do we have any discussion on it?
Well, I looked at it and I really couldn't think of too many more things to suggest. They really covered a lot of the areas that the Native Plant Society would be concerned with. So I thought, let's just endorse it.
Okay.
I'd just like to say, in the plan that was done by Dan and Bella and Clark with the RCD, one of the things that we looked at was remote sensing, to look at the soil, and how dry the soil is as a predictor for fire. That would also be another tool that we could use that could be put there. We did get endorsement from the Bureau of Engineering to pursue funds to do the inundation treatment plan to alleviate some of the fire that's been happening. You know, maybe Measured Value is something that we could go to for that project. They accept. They'll work with you and they are due in July, so that's something that if it were something that we would want to work together. We do have a relationship with Patty Lieberman there. And talking about some other projects, so that could be a potential to get some of this proactive fire mitigation stuff going.
That would be excellent. You know, and what I did, of course, you know, I mentioned in our report that, you know, frankly, I am very, very concerned about our wildlife reserve burning again. We did have a fire that was started in the reserve about a week ago. I went in right after and took some photos, and someone had set a fire right near where the Palo Verde tree is. So the area is very beautifully landscaped now. But you know, the only thing encouraging was it didn't go tearing through all the overgrown coyote bush and up through the whole thing. And probably because it was only 100 degrees, not 116. The wind was maybe 8 miles an hour and not 15.
Yeah.
But, you know, as we're going day after day after day with it 100 degrees plus, I'd like to know what the fuel moisture is and the live fuel moisture and the vegetation in there. You know, what happens if all of a sudden we've got one day it's 116 degrees for the, you know. When,
We're under red flag warning right now.
yeah. So,
Well, I'd like to just counter that kind of by saying, of course it's gonna burn again. And why worry about it in that way? I mean, 6 years ago, not all of it burned, but 80% burned, okay? And now you go back there and except for the stag, the trunks of the dead trees, you would maybe not even know that we had a fire. So I think that one of the big misconceptions that everybody, all the humans make, is that these little things on Earth are gonna make a difference when a big wind and it's really dry and somebody lights a fire, that you're gonna be able to stop it. So, I mean, I think the best thing that we can do is doing the things that we're doing. Trying to plant native plants which are less prone to burning, remove the mustard and the bad weeds and the thistles from around the native plants. So there's not that flashy fuel for them to carry the fire. But I mean, when there's gonna be a big fire and big wind and no humidity.
my question is, do you think the coyote bush is getting overgrown?
I overgrown.
Overgrown for what purpose, I guess?
Well, it's absolutely dense.
Yeah, it's the most, but it comes up whether we like it or not. To me, it's the natural succession. And I mean, what are we proposing? Do something like they are supposed to be doing on the South Reserve, cutting it to 3 feet every 3 years?
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
But then it'll.
I mean, I think the density though does help it not become a hiding place for house residents, et cetera. Like when you have a dense thicket of brush, it's not very penetrable.
They
they
their
create
little
right,
ways
they
through,
burrow right.
and they create little homes inside there. I don't know what the situation is, because even if you had 75 different metrics saying, okay, it's perfect condition for a fire, then what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You're gonna go through and remove everybody? There's no way that you can.
The reality is, these are not natural fires. These are human caused fires. And I think focusing the efforts as much as possible on preventing ignition, what we're doing to, address camps, et cetera, is going to be most important, as well as Steve mentioned, tackling the invasives. So I'm not sure that trying to do vegetation management on the natives is a worthwhile use of resources, but open to hearing any specific proposals if you have thoughts about it.
Okay, I think definitely keep the pathways open.
Just getting them to do that down the other day, and it's
bushy.
It's bushy.
We'll work on getting the pathways wide open. So, okay, so have we discussed it enough? Do we want to just adopt that?
Yeah, there's a motion on the table.
There's a motion. There's a second. We've discussed.
All those in favor, raise your hand.
Okay.
Opposed? Okay, that's like a unanimous verdict.
Okay, Miriam from Lake Balboa. I guess there's one surveillance camera now in the Sepulveda Basin. And the park rangers would like to add 3 more cameras. And I don't know if she's even on to tell us what the heck we're talking about. But I would certainly support increasing the number of surveillance cameras just to counteract illegal dumping and everything else. So I'm glad to make a motion to support 3 more surveillance cameras to the basin.
I would second that.
Okay. Rec Parks, Rangers, at the Griffith Park facility.
So would that be transferred to our post range station here?
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's electronic, so they can look at it on a cell phone any place, so there's nothing to transfer anywhere. It's all like web-based. But that's where they have people sitting and watching it. They probably could also monitor at Benson Dam, but I don't think they do much but dispatch out of there. So.
Will they, do we know if they'll be monitoring the wildlife area?
Excuse?
Where the side with the camera pointed at, will they monitor the wildlife area?
Yeah, I don't even know I think the one that they've got is kind of pointing along Burbank Boulevard along by the 405.
That was for the illegal dump.
But yeah, for sure. And I do know, I was told that Chief Lassarelli for the park rangers has 3 additional locations that they would like to put them in. So
So we're happy to approve, we just like to know where they're gonna go.
So we're fighting the flock cameras, but approving these cameras.
Yep.
I don't think they're flock cameras. I don't know what they are. Whatever they are.
I think the safety concerns are high enough, you know, between all the different issues that we're having with enforcement to justify some.
Okay, so do we want to take a vote on this?
Yes.
Okay, so I am.
Those in favor?
It's unanimous. Okay, an item on the agenda, Muriel was asking questions about the Finland facility upgrade. Did you see that, Marie?
I did, but I saw it too late. I think it would be better to defer and I'll invite DWP staff to join again and answer questions. I mean, I've discussed some of this with them, but I don't have numbers in my head. I'm not.
Okay, Muriel, can we kick that into September?
Sure.
Great.
Thanks. What I will say is that they have been working closely with, you know, different stakeholders in terms of water flows. So that is all being considered. And DWP is part of the staff that just completed its final meeting this week, which is the California Environmental Flows Framework with recommendations for the Yellow River. The Tillman team is connected to that project. So I know that that has all been considered. I just don't have details in my head. It's been a very long.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Nurit, maybe you could get closer to the computer or use your computer so we can hear you.
I can just speak louder. What I was saying is that I'd like to defer the question to have DWP staff speak, although I do, separate from this committee, have a role as commissioner and have some familiarity with the project. It would be better if we want to get into the details of the water flows to have one of our staff members join the meeting in September.
Okay. So that'll be on the agenda September. We have something else for that too. Glenn, did you have a question?
Yes. So the company that's been hired to do the construction work apparently has hired a public relations firm, and they're making the rounds. They sent something out to all the neighborhood councils, at least in the valley. They're making the rounds. I attended one of the meetings, and from the perspective of the impact of, first of all, many of us know this is 10-year-old news as far as this project. I mean, it went through the review and whatever. So I'm not sure why they're doing it, but I did ask specific, and others asked questions. I just wanted to say that if you get referred to this PR firm that's from the company doing the actual construction, they don't have the information that you're seeking. So I just wanted to make the comment that if there's somebody, you know, from actually DWP, but it's a waste of time to have those folks come. They're the ones who are currently doing the outreach. And again, my characterization based on what I saw. What?
Are you referring to Jacobs, the company that is engaged in the Tillman project?
I don't recall them. I'd have to look at the agenda where they listed the name of the but it was a
Which meeting?
it was a public, the company that was listed was actually hired by the construction company. They were like a PR firm. They weren't even engineers. So anyway, please don't have them come to our meeting because they were not going to be able to answer, I don't believe, the questions that you're asking based on their responses.
Well, can you email me the details of what you're referring to in terms of outreach? But anyway, comment noted, and I'll be sure that someone can technical questions. But in general, the short answer is yes, there will be small reductions in LA River flows and dry times, but they've been working with agencies to ensure downstream everything.
Okay, so we'll get someone to give us the lowdown on that in September. Just looking at the old business status, Haskell Creek, LA Sand should be able to clean that out after bird nesting season.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that because I remember that we had found out Regan Park can't do it.
It's LA Sand, they have a division that does it. And they just, we need to wait for the Bell's Virios to leave. I am working on looking into a wildlife, citizen troll for the, probably not even just the wildlife area, but various basin areas that have issues. I'm doing some research on that. I hope to have a meeting of the Audubon Conservation Committee to kick the ideas around, and then hopefully either September or October come back to this group with it. And I may share a few details in the meantime, but I am consulting with some other agencies and groups on how they've done it. I bet that Paola still needs storage.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Okay, we've gotta beat the brush and see what we can round up. Let me ask you, how much stuff are we talking about?
I mean, right now we have hoses and pumps that we use that we had mentioned last time. I'm hoping that in the future we could store the shared tools that we have between Polar and the California Plant Society and us that we use. Right now, every Habitat Restoration Day, Polar does bring the tools that they use, and we have also, I've been bringing things every time and saying yes, so we're hoping again to have that shared space so we can all store the tools that we're using every time we come out to do restoration. But it's not, I mean, I had a list that I had sent to Joshua, and I can send that list again. It's not too much stuff at the moment, but I am hoping that in the future we can start collecting more items.
Okay, I have a question about the hoses. Those hoses are massive.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you considered using like either the flexible steel hoses or expanding hoses? Which are very extremely lightweight.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I don't have too much experience with those. I have heard that they are more fragile. But it is something that I would consider, especially if, we ended up not getting storage at the facility.
I mean, maybe the next time you're there, I might come over watering. I might come over with one and you can give it a whirl.
Yeah.
Because, just the amount of space you would need for the rubber hoses would be much more than what you would need with certainly the expanding hoses. Mm-hmm. Which is what I use at the fire station, or the steel hoses, which are they don't expand, but they're very lightweight and easy to carry and small.
Yeah.
Possibly good to hang up.
Huh?
Possibly good to hang up as well, because
You
you know,
could- yeah,
the
hang
floor space is the issue that Polar has. We just don't have the square footage
Yeah.
to store those heavy duty hoses that
Yeah.
CMPS brings. So that's why we haven't taken them on yet, and our storage is in, you know, or it's not Second Park, it's at our village. So to schlep that every single month. Or even potentially, you know, if and when we get funding, the support rack and maybe send out from Polar staff every week, every Saturday. We don't have that.
I think, let's do it, let's do a test with a couple of the lighter gauge, because you don't get high pressure water coming out of those.
No,
pumps.
yeah, yeah.
So, you know. I think it would reduce the weight of stuff that you're schlepping hugely. And at the fire station, I've had the 100-foot expanding hose there for like 2 years now, and it isn't dead yet. Which is amazing, because the firemen play with it too, they use it to wash their cars and stuff.
Yeah, definitely think
I'll come up with a couple different things for you to try, so let me know next time.
Yes.
We jumped on that, so do we have any updates from the California Native Plant Society?
Just one thing on your agenda there, item 8.4. When you guys talk about the Sepulveda Basin website, why don't you distinguish it from this Sepulveda Basin Wildlife Area Steering Committee website versus the Los Angeles City Sepulveda Basin website? Is that what this is?
Why don't I call it city?
Yeah, you can call it city.
We'll call it, I'll refer to it as city.
Yeah, it will.
Right. It just makes it clear that I don't have to pay attention.
You know.
Okay. Well, we've been regularly out there, even despite the ridiculous heat that we've been having this summer, and you know, trying to clear along the main trail, trying to the work that is done by Rec and Polar. Brian can talk about. So the Native Plant Society continues to come out there on Thursdays and Saturdays, and you know, we're making headway, but there's lots of weeds, and who knows what El Nino is going to bring, right?
Do we have some updates from Polar?
Yeah, I missed the last weekend's habitat restoration, but yeah, despite the heat, we had 101 people show up. Despite that heat, so that was fantastic. Quick data: 930 gallons of invasive plants were removed across 280 square meters. I think that's about 0.07 acres. All of our plants that are in the new restoration area were watered and mulched. That's 112 native plants. We had George help us with making, some of the volunteers help out him with making 6,400 native sea balls that are going to be ready for dispersal when we get that El Nino. That's fantastic. Our next habitat restoration is September 26th, which is conveniently National Public Lands Day. So perfect way to go out and enjoy public lands. And then quick shout out for the Great LA River Cleanup. That's coming up. That's the 36th annual, by the way. It's been around for a while. It's going to be coming up to the sports or south of the sports complex, west of Balboa Boulevard, closer to the soccer field area is where we're going to have a cleanup site on October 10th. And we need lots and lots, hundreds of community members to volunteer. So you'll probably, if you're not on the Polar newsletter, please sign up, and we should be sharing that information out in the next week and a half to get people to start signing up. Because the sports complex site, we can accommodate like 400 volunteers. So
they're going down in the river bottom.
We are going to be
going. Yeah, it's gonna. Have you seen it? It's been cleaned out by the Army Corps, so it's going to be a very different experience.
All right, we're gonna do a site visit.
I mean, there's junk in it. Believe me, they didn't get all the.
They did the nature
part of the cleanup. They did the hazmat cleanup. They cut they removed most of the non-native vegetation. So it's a very different experience going in there than it was a year ago, 2 years ago.
Great, right, yeah, so, and that's where we hit, hit an issue or a challenge, I guess, with our attendees, is they want to grab those mattresses and those huge like appliances and all that stuff. But Army Corps, city, all those agencies do that bulk removal, so we don't have to break our backs.
Yeah.
With our hands manually, so this will be great, yeah, we can pick up all the small litter and get it out of the river before it gets.
Would you consider taking loppers to kill some of the vesper bean?
Yeah, sure.
It's
If
okay.
you got loppers, we don't have any. There's.
Okay.
Right.
Kathy, do you have any updates from the Sustainability Alliance?
No, not specifically.
Okay. Shelley?
We're having another, habitat, watering event at River Branch this weekend.
Oh. Waterings?
Of. That area was burned in the Palisades fire. Get that.
Let's see. San Fernando Valley Audubon Society, I'll let, we've got some of our other board members online, they can jump in. It's been summer, so it's been quiet. We had a tremendously successful little, Hanson Dam walk. It was hot, we've got an article on the website about it now. We're getting a lot of, we're doing a really good social media campaign. We're getting a lot of new birders, for people that are just interested at our bird walks. And, it's been very exciting, and, people get so excited. Having stuff pointed out. We'll be going back to regular programming coming up, next month in, September, starting with our first Sunday bird walk. Muriel, what am I forgetting? Barbara. We have our monthly presentations recommence in September. So, and anything else super exciting, I will let everyone know. Sierra Club.
Yeah.
I think I skipped right over Marie. Did you have anything from?
No.
Okay, all right, you're on. Yeah, the summers are pretty quiet.
I retract my nothing. Nothing from LA Audubon directly, but SF Audubon and LA Brown study, we will have our final presentation of the season on Zoom, and I can send the information to the group. It is September 23rd. The evening of September 23rd on Zoom, and this is a study that includes raptors in the Sepulveda Basin. So it would be of interest to the committee, and I will send that information.
And good, and we will have Marie do a presentation for San Fernando Valley Audubon. Let's see, I think it's the fourth Thursday in January. And we need to decide if we want to do in person or virtual.
So you're welcome to join either or both if you really like raptors.
Yes. And that said, I think we shall adjourn. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to everyone online attending. And I wish everyone a good night.
Hey, Pat, I put the Tillman contact, the email that they solicited. It's in the chat. It's got the person's name, phone number,
Okay.
and probably email. But it's Urban Strategy Group is probably a PR firm hired by the construction company. Oh, yeah.
And who?
Yeah,
can you-
Jacobs Engineering, like Muriel.
And who did you receive this through, the neighborhood council or?
It was sent to a neighborhood council who in turn forwarded it to me.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, that's different. That's like outreach around construction. But there's been separate, I think there's environmental firm handling the LA River flow stuff. So anyway, I will ensure that whoever attends has answers to your questions. Okay? All right. And we're back.